Welcome to the Trailblazers podcast, a space where we bring you real stories from people who have chosen their own path, face challenges head on, and continue to move forward with purpose. In this episode, I'm in conversation with Michelle Mills Porter, a visionary human behavior specialist, an entrepreneur, keynote speaker, and creator of the People Reader. Michelle has dedicated her life to helping leaders and organizations better understand people, communication, collaboration, and culture. She is known for her unique ability to uncover the patterns that drive human behavior and for helping people create stronger connections, healthier workplaces, and more meaningful impact. What makes Michelle's story especially inspiring is the experience that shaped her life's work. After surviving the 2004 Boxing Day Tsunami, she gained profound insights into resilience, trust, leadership, and the power of human connection during life's most challenging moments. In our conversation, we're going to explore leadership, communication, neurodiversity, and so on. This is a powerful conversation that you don't want to miss. Join me for this inspiring conversation with Michelle Mills Porter. Thank you and welcome to the Trailblazers podcast. Welcome everyone to today's episode of Trailblazers podcast. I have a very special guest joining us all the way from United Kingdom. Trailblazers podcast is a space for real and meaningful conversations with trailblazers who don't follow a conventional path, but they take the freedom and guts to follow a completely unconventional path. And during this process, they inspire a lot of people to get started and to be inspired with their journeys. So thank you for joining us for another episode of Trailblazers podcast. This is host Sandhya, and I am so thrilled to have Michelle Mills Porter as today's special guest. Thank you, Michelle, for agreeing and for your time. I really look forward for our conversation today.
It's my absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. So before we get started to get a deep dive conversation with Michelle, I would quickly introduce about Michelle. I'm honored to welcome Michelle. She is a visionary human behavior specialist. She's a keynote speaker. She's an entrepreneur and a community builder. And above all that, she's a creator of the People Reader platform. She is very well known for helping leaders and organizations to better understand human behavior, communication, collaboration, and culture. Her work focuses on creating behavioral clarity inside organizations so people can thrive, connect, and perform at their highest potential. And what makes Michelle's story even more powerful is a life-changing experience that she went through. And I'm sure we are going to all listen to her remarkable story, which just changed her entire trajectory. And not only did for her, but also all the recipients who followed her after her transformational experience. Surviving the 2004 Boxing Day Tsunami, she transformed her understanding of leadership, trust, and resilience, and human instinct. So we're going to know more about that. She's also a very passionate advocate for neurodiversity and cognitive inclusion, helping organizations recognize the power of different ways of thinking. She's an author of multiple books, and we're going to talk about that as well. This is going to be a powerful conversation around leadership, communication, human behavior, and so many more elements. So why wait? And let's get started. Thank you all for joining today's podcast. Michelle, a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining.
It's my absolute pleasure. And it is warm, isn't it? Both in the UK and where you are. Very warm.
So, Michelle, before we get started, I really want to hear your authentic story. What were some of your early life experiences that led you into this path of speaking?
I think that's such a good question. I wasn't expecting that. But actually, I did have a bit of a tricky childhood in the fact that I was born at the end of August. And so when all of my friends from nursery went to school, I was too young. And so I was separated from them. And then I joined the year afterwards. And something happened in the school system that meant that they changed the end of year. And I was quite well developed, emotionally. And instead of moving me forward 1 year, they moved me forward 2 years. But what they didn't realize they were doing is in those fundamental years of learning about relationships and how to build rapport and how to fit in. They were literally pulling me away from every group that I had,
Right.
that I belonged to, and putting me somewhere new where I was the outsider.
Right.
So I wasn't allowed to play unless I was it in TIG or, and it's one of those things that I look back now and I think I was always really interested in how do you fit in? How do you build rapport? How do you get accepted by other people? Because I didn't really have a true best friend until I was 8 years old. And so I think that really did have something to do with my desire to help other people fit in.
That's nice. So your early life experiences of you having to fit in has actually transformed, and you still have a bit of that whenever you look at other people. So did
I,
that
I have
result in human behavior?
Yeah, I have a lot of that. When I moved on to high school, I then became the person that looked after everyone else that was bullied or left out.
Yeah.
And so, I was always conscious of that. Then I was meant to be fairly intelligent at school. I had my first poem published when I was 11. I
Wow.
came top of the year in music, and my teachers even told me to drop music at O
Oh,
level because I
okay.
didn't need to take it. I could go straight to A level.
Oh,
But what happened was when I took my O levels, back then, O levels, you didn't have any coursework. It was just one exam on the day. And I failed all of my exams apart from the two that I didn't need recall for. So English language, I got an A in English language. And I passed my arts O level as well. Everything else, I believe, I failed. I even got an ungraded in my maths.
mm.
Now, nowadays, teachers would look at the results of a child and say, hold on, you've got excellent scores in one exam and dreadful scores in another, that there's something going on here. But back then, they just said, you're not intelligent enough to go on to secondary education. I'd go and find your place in the world. So I joined the Air Force at 17.
Wow. Okay. So because of your school results, is that like a unexpected decision that you had to join Air Forces, or is that something that you always wanted to do?
I think I always wanted to join the forces. My dad had been in the army,
Okay.
and he was so fond of the army, and I wanted to make him proud. But as a child, I really had ants in my pants, as my mum always said. I always wanted to be doing everything. I wanted to go out and see the world, and she could never find enough hobbies for me. So I think it was the reason I chose the Air Force was because there were so many extracurricular activities as well. And I knew that it would keep me occupied. And I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was in all the sports teams. I was in the theatre productions. I was the DJ, and I just loved life. I just loved it.
Wow, wow. And look at the energy levels, right? I mean, I spoke to you last week. I was like, oh my God. And then you were like the first person who messaged me on the group, and then we connected. And wow, look at the energy levels that Michelle has at her age. And I'm like, what am I doing here? So inspirational, Michelle. Could you speak a little bit more about your experience at Air Force and then moving on to your speaking career? I know you mentioned about you didn't go for it, but you found that path like unexpectedly, is what you said last time.
That's right. I didn't really fit in the Air Force either. I didn't really fit in anywhere, to be honest, and I didn't know why. I
Mm.
realized when my personality started to come out at
Okay.
18, 19 years old, I suddenly realized that I was extremely maverick and probably quite naughty,
Okay.
um, not very good at following rules. And that's not really the place for people that are mavericks. The forces doesn't necessarily, I mean, I was lucky in the fact that they put me in charge. So people say, I don't know how you were in the forces, having to take orders and everything, but I was giving as many orders as I was taking. But but I still needed to spread my wings, and so I came out of the forces at 21. So I did 5 years of adult service and came out, and I fell into a sales career.
Wow.
I worked my way up, very, very quickly, very fast. And then my last employed position was as head of client development for a branding agency
Yeah.
down in London. And I loved that. But then at 30 years old, 31 years old, I wanted to be closer to my family. So I came home and I launched my own business. And that's when things took a different track.
Okay, that's awesome. So from school to Air Force to a sales business. And then what happened, Michelle?
So I launched my own business. I thought if I can do what I'm doing for this branding agency, if I could do that for lots of different companies,
Mm,
then I could help everyone be successful, not just one.
right,
So I
right.
launched this marketing company that was very maverick, that worked on results only, was unheard of. And of course, we just broke the market open. Everyone wanted us. We had to go incognito. We were like the A team. So if you
Oh,
wanted to work with us, you would have to find us, and
oh,
then we would interview you, and only if you passed would we work with you.
oh,
And
nice.
we were winning every single award going. It was amazing. I was winning all the Chamber of Commerce awards, and we were flying. I thought, this is it. This is my purpose. And
Wow.
that's what I thought my life was.
Hmm. And during that peak of that, was it, I mean, the life changing experience happened when you were in the peak of that career or later?
The peak.
The
So
peak.
yeah, at the absolute peak. We'd gone from 0 to 750,000 turnover by year 3. I'd gained investors in people, one of the youngest companies in the UK to gain
Mm,
investors in people, which proves that you really care about the
mm,
development of your people.
yeah. Yeah.
And getting all these awards. So we decided, my partner and I decided to go on a few holidays and celebrate our success. So
Yeah.
we joined a dive team and we learned to dive, and then we found ourselves on a few exotic holidays. And then in 2004, we took our first Christmas holiday away ever. And that's when we were caught in Hikkaduwa in Sri Lanka. We were caught in the middle of the Boxing Day tsunami.
Yeah. Last week, interestingly, when you mentioned about the tsunami in 2004, I was just thinking back in the memory lane, like, where was I in 2004? In fact, I already was working in the US because I moved to US in 2001. And in 2004, December, I was actually in India, in my hometown, which also is on a coast. And I remember feeling the earthquake. Yes, all the way in India. And now that you mentioned 2004 December the other day, I was like, oh, yeah, that is the earthquake that I was in India actually. And then it just was like all over the place. It is like a life changing thing. But I want to hear from you. How did you even get rescued and what happened after that?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that earthquake was felt by a few people in Sri Lanka as well.
Yeah,
Obviously, the epicenter
yes,
of the tsunami was in Indonesia, but
correct.
actually the earthquake was massive. It was 1,200 kilometers long, and it was 30 kilometers below the sea floor. It
Yes.
was equivalent. If you look at Hiroshima bombs going off, atomic bombs going off, it was equivalent to 23,000 Hiroshima bombs going off at once.
Right.
That's how big it was. And the
Yeah.
after effects reached right across the ocean to the coast of Africa. So it
Yes.
really did affect so many people on the planet. We were in our hotel room on the third floor when it happened. We'd got up for breakfast, decided to go back to bed and sleep in rather than go for a dive, and we woke up, and it was like the end of the world. Everyone had gone within just a few minutes from hearing screams and shouts to thinking what's going on, and then looking out the window, the whole world. It just looked like someone had picked up the whole village and plonked it in the middle of the sea. There was sea all around us. So as we looked inland, there were buses and ships and everything being swept by, and yeah, we had no idea what it was. I picked up my phone and I just sent a message to my sister and to Stuart's sister, and it says there's been a bit of a flood, but we're okay. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it had been an atomic bomb going off in the UK and this was a butterfly effect, or whether this was a local phenomenon. I had no idea. And we couldn't get out of the hotel because the water was up to the ceiling of the first floor. So we couldn't even get out. I remember looking out the veranda on our third floor, and we were as high as we could be. There was nothing above us apart from the roof. So we kept thinking, what happens if this water keeps coming? What do we do? Do we get on the roof? Do we try and get out and swim? What do we do? And it was just, yeah, it was bizarre, absolutely bizarre.
And it just happened suddenly in front of you. I mean, was there like a warning or something that you
There
heard,
was,
or
there was no
suddenly
warning
in the middle of
whatsoever.
water?
There was no warning whatsoever. What happened in the morning, we'd all
Mm.
gone down to the veranda to have breakfast, and people were talking about how far the tide was, what a low tide it was. They couldn't believe it, and they were saying, "Look, we can walk around the rocks that normally we have to snorkel around. We can actually walk to them." So there were loads of people out there exploring. It was a beautiful sunny day, gorgeous blue skies. So there was a bit of an excitement in the air. And we, like I said, I went back to bed, and woke up. I heard a bit of banging and shouting and stuff like that, and I thought it was children mucking around in the hotel. I had no idea, but there was no warning, there was no alarm, there was nothing, no warning at all. That's why it felt like the end of the world. I just didn't understand what had happened.
Yeah. And then after that, how long did it take for you to get out of that disaster, Michelle? Like literally, physically, how long did it take
The
for you to?
passage of time is very strange in that environment. You can't tell how long something takes. The best I can figure it, it was at least a couple of hours before the water had receded enough for us to be able to half swim and um, half wade out of the hotel. And it's because there were two people from our dive team on the other side of the Gall Road, what used to be the Gall Road, and they were
Mhm.
waiting at us and shouting to us.
Okay.
So we went over to join them. We packed a rucksack of, this is the strange thing. Um, Nothing had any monetary value anymore. Anything that would have been valuable just didn't count. So all of our video equipment, all of our jewelry, that was left. And instead, the things that had more currency were things like bottles of water, or a good pair of trainers. And all of a sudden, they became the most valuable things. So we waded across to the other side of the road, and then they were able to fill in some of the gaps in terms of what had happened, and we were able to fill in the gaps of what happened after they were swept away. I remember saying to them, "Why are you telling us to come over here? Because you're in this open top, you know,
Yeah.
um, rooftop bar, and we were in a hotel which has to be safer." And they said, "Yeah, but look at the hotel." And I looked around, and the swimming pool had been washed away, and it looked like the entire hotel was lilting towards the sea. So, it was terrifying. It was some hours later when we saw Cami, who owns the dive centre. He was walking through all the rubble on the Gall Road towards the dive centre that was completely obliterated. And he had some of his boat boys with him, some of his staff. And we shouted down to him, and he shouted down to us and said, "Get down here." And he said something in Sinhalese to one of his boat boys, and the next thing we know is we are being force marched inland by a few miles. And all I remember, it was burning hot. The heat, we couldn't get away from the heat. We were wading through water, and then we were wading through rubble. We were falling over, getting up, and then there was just this huge gravel hill. And I remember they said, "Up here, up here," and I was like, "I've got nothing left in the tank. I can't move. I have nothing." And my husband's hand was on my back, and he pushed me up that hill. And when we got to the top, these big gates opened, and we found ourselves in Jimmy Lal's garden. Jimmy Lal was a village elder. He was Cami's uncle. He was very well respected, had a fleet of ships and a fleet of lorries, and he had opened his garden to all of these survivors. And there were maybe 100, 150 of us, all, wearing whatever they were wearing when the tsunami hit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just unimaginable, I would say. Uh, these are like, that's what they call it, nature is the most powerful one, right? Now, once you came out of it and you went back to UK, you did mention last time we spoke that completely changed the way I started looking at things in life. And you probably you moved out of the career after you got back to your natural self. But I can't even imagine, Michelle, how many nights you must have had nightmares, because once people go through something like that, it's just hard to catch a good sleep, right?
I think I didn't experience that, and I think that's because I was flooded with the positivity. So we were there for a week in Jimmy Lal's garden, and that week was in slow motion. I
Mm.
watched this community build with no hierarchy, no politics. I watched people collaborating. I watched people communicating with hardly any effort, even though we all spoke different languages. I watched what it took to get people to collaborate effectively. And that I was in awe of that, absolutely in awe of it. So I wasn't thinking about the nightmares and the horrors and everything. I was transfixed on these beautiful lessons that were just being dropped on me. And I was wide open to receiving them. And, I was sitting there saying, bring it on, I'm listening.
Yeah.
And when we did make it back to the UK, it was the Belgian Air Force at the end that got us out of Sri Lanka and back to Belgium.
Mhm.
And we ended up getting back to the UK a week later, actually on New Year's Eve. And everyone from the dive centre, the Millennium Dive Centre in Bromsgrove, we all collected on New Year's Eve. And that's when we launched the Hickadoo Village Fund. And we came together to try and raise enough money and send it back to the people who'd looked after us. I didn't change immediately. I didn't. So what happened was I had 14 staff. I couldn't just let them down. They had children that needed school uniforms. They had to put food in the fridge. So I had a responsibility as the CEO to
Right.
ensure that that business kept running. So I kept going through the motions, but what I didn't realize is it was breaking me. And the reason it was breaking me is because I was out of alignment with my true driving forces. What the tsunami did is it woke me up to what really drives me. I didn't think about my sales because once when I was over there, I didn't worry about my clients. I didn't worry about my staff. I was thinking about, playing Scrabble with my parents and, enjoying Sunday roasts with my mum-in-law and her fantastic roast potatoes and playing with my nieces and my nephews. Those were the things that I was aching for. And so I realized that actually all I wanted to do was the Hickatu Village Fund. I wanted to help people. I wanted to raise awareness. I wanted to do something really useful. But all the time I was working and carry on running my business for everyone else, it was breaking me and breaking me and breaking me until eventually 6 months later, I had what I can only describe as a full medical breakdown. I literally was on my back. I had slip discs. I had a slip disc in my neck, two slip discs in my back. I had an internal infection, which stopped me ever being able to have children. I had the worst eczema you've ever seen on my hands and my feet. I had delayed PTSD. I had adrenal exhaustion, sleep apnea. I even had cancer, the only form of skin cancer that's not caused by the sun. My whole body was saying, lie down, Michelle, and take a breath. So I was forced to.
Even then, it didn't stop you. You created like a massive community that you have created, and you keep doing all these wonderful things.
I believe that I've been given a new purpose, and my purpose was to share what I call the magnificence of humanity. What I saw in Jimmy Lall's garden was the magnificence of humanity, the sheer power of collaboration, the understanding that we can't achieve anywhere near what's possible on our own. We just can't. And I was always one of those people that just did it. I just did it on my own.
Yeah.
But when I saw the power of collaboration, I realized that it's so important. If anything is going to save the human race, it's collaboration. And,
Yes.
and that's when I decided to try and capture everything I'd learnt. And although it looks like a perfect path now, it took the best part of 15 years to actually, for me to distill everything that I'd learned and turn it into these analyses that would be able to show people their magnificence without being in the same situation, to be able to show them where they're going to be in alignment with themselves, with their own core driving forces, where their prominent qualities shine. And yeah, by Jove, I've done it. I've got it. I can do it now.
Yeah, and look at you. And whenever I talk to you about this behavior, people, community, your face lights up, right? And that's so authentic and that's so genuine. That is coming only from people who understood what is their real purpose. It just doesn't happen with everybody, right? I mean, people might be saying, oh, I think I know what is my purpose. No, it doesn't happen. Your face is just lighting up whenever I say, and thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing that
I think
transformational journey. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm interjecting. I don't mean to be rude, but I
Yeah.
think there's something very important that I need to say about purpose, because your purpose doesn't have to be the one and only thing you do. After the tsunami, my entire purpose was to be the PRO for the Hikkaduwa Village Fund. I was the one doing all the interviews. I was the one going out there and speaking, and raising money and things like that. And my career had got me ready for that, because I'd already been asked to speak by the Chambers of Commerce, and people were already paying me to speak. So I'd already been given those gifts to be
Right.
able to use in a different way. And I thought that my purpose was now to raise money for the Hikkaduwa Village Fund, and that was it. I was blindsided by everything else. That was the only thing that was my purpose. 6 months later, after we'd raised £100,000, the rest of the charity wanted to disband and get on with building their own lives back. And I
Yeah.
felt like the whole rug had been pulled from under me. So my message is, your purpose doesn't have to be this forever. It's
Correct.
this for now. So my purpose after the Hikkaduwa Village Fund took me a long while to find my purpose again. But yeah, it took a long time, but eventually I realize now that everything happened perfectly at exactly the right time.
I think you did the best that you could do by connecting all the dots, Michelle. I really appreciate that. And especially after going through so much physically, also, you didn't just sit like maybe I would say 90% of the world's population when they are thrown into situations like that. I think 90% of the people just give up. But you are like the rare person, I think, who took on it, who understood maybe there is deep meaning behind it. And then you literally propelled from there, right? Creating so many initiatives. And also, recently, you also were the president of PSA, UK and Ireland as well, motivating so many people, creating new initiatives and all of that, right? So I'm curious to know now, like after leaving your business, or maybe you parked the business or you gave the control to somebody else, how did you come into speaking and inspiring people?
So whilst I was a CEO, that's when I started speaking. When the Chambers of Commerce started asking me, Michelle, you've won
Right.
this award. Can you go and speak to these small businesses? And then they started paying me to go and speak to small
Okay.
businesses. So I'd got a little bit of grounding. And then with the Hikkaduwa Village Fund, I went out everywhere. And although my style had always been to make people laugh, what I was trying to do now is to make people cry, because I wanted them to put their hands in their pockets and give me their money. So I went to every networking meeting I could. I went to every opportunity where people were inviting me to come and share some of my story. I did, and I left with money
Yeah.
to put into the Hikkaduwa Village Fund. So it was never my desire to talk about the tsunami. I did it to raise money, but after that, I wasn't going to talk about it, because I think the most horrific thing, the most obscene thing for me would be for anyone to think that I was trying to earn a living from such a horrendous disaster. So I wanted to cut myself off from it altogether. It was only 15 years later, when all of my analysis tools had been built, that I suddenly realized, this is in 2015, I suddenly realized that the story has a use. The story is the wrapping paper.
Correct.
But the important thing is the gifts, and the gifts are the lessons that I learned that I share with other people. Those are the gifts, but it
Mhm.
doesn't hurt to have the wrapping paper. So I
Right.
do talk about my experience a little bit just to help people get it into context and realize the power behind it, because that's my why. It's the why behind all of my analysis tools.
It's awesome. And I got to taste a little bit of your analysis tools, and they were wonderful. The way you understand humans, the connection, and the mindset behind it, it's just simply so amazing. Um, and you mentioned that your experience with uh, working with chambers of commerce or working with customers, working with leaders, different industries doing branding, marketing, all this, I think it naturally led you into understanding humans in general, right? And especially the emotional connect that you have with them is so powerful. So, anything specific that you have done to build these tools? And right now, who are the kind of leaders that you're helping, Michelle?
I think where I've got three main tools. One is Essence, which is a core driving forces analysis, and it shows us what truly motivates and drives people. That's the why we do what we do. My behavior profile, which is the level that most people work at. My behavior profile is a brilliant behavior profile. It's the best I've ever seen, but it's just our behavior. And we need to get beyond that. We can't just rely on people's behavior patterns because
Right.
that is very shallow. It's just the way we show up, it's just the way we communicate. And we can change that if we want to.
Yeah.
Whereas we can't really change our essence. And then the other tool that I have is Rapid Rapport, which is a tool that allows you to anonymously covertly read someone else in order to build rapport.
Mm.
So it's analysis you do on someone else, and it's a very, very special tool. But what I realized is that the behavior profiling is companies that are doing behavior profiling without anything else are not digging deep enough.
Yeah.
It's because the behavior profile shows us how we do things, how I communicate, how I solve problems, how I use my language, how I build rapport, how I clash with others, how other people see me. But the essence, the core driving forces analysis is why. And unless we understand our people and why they do what they do, we can't hope to hold them up in the light where they belong. We can't hope to see them shine in the way that they should, because that's what we need to align to. And what I've realized is that essence is so much more powerful than I ever imagined. Because when you do align yourself with your true core driving forces, all the floodgates open. You feel the stress go. You feel empowered. You feel fulfilled. You feel on purpose, like you're living your life on purpose. And it's a magnificently powerful tool. I'm very, very proud of it.
Super, super, super excited to hear that, Michelle. And the sheer energy that comes in when a leader operates on a daily basis in any company, once they understand the why, like you said, is truly magical, right? I mean,
It I think it does even more than you could imagine, because if we imagine, if we talk about values as an example, there are so many leaders that say, you need to share my values and then you can join my organization. But
yeah,
actually, our values come from our upbringing, from those formative years. They come from our culture, our religion, if we had one, our background, what our caregivers taught us, our experiences.
yeah,
So there is nothing more there is nothing less inclusive in my mind at all than
mhm,
saying you have to share my values. Actually, the
yeah,
power lies in saying you have different values to me. Let me look at the situation through your lens. And when you actually agree to look at each other's perception
Yeah.
and understand each other, that's when all those walls come down. And exactly what happened in Jimmy Lal's garden. Those walls come down. There's no hierarchy, there's no politics, there's no arguments. We just accept each other for who we are, and then we come together. And that's what's powerful. And yes, I will get goosebumps every single day of my life when I talk about this stuff, because I can't help it. It
Yeah.
feels like I have uncovered treasure. And it's not me. I feel like I was channeled. I look back at Essence and I think, how
Yeah.
did I even create that? I
Yeah.
don't even know how I did it.
Yeah. I think it's a universal energy that came into you, Michelle, through that experience. And it helped you to unleash like the hidden amount of power that you have within you to make meaningful change in life. I think super, super excited to know about that. Michelle, I can only see from you and I can get the energy with your goosebumps that you're feeling right now. I can feel it all the way in India. I can see when your face is lighting up when you're talking about it. Wonderful, Michelle. There were like a couple of things I wanted to ask you about your journey about writing your books and how it impacted a lot of people with your writing work.
Okay, so I wrote one book which was called Phone Genius: The Art of Non-Visual Communication. But everything else I've written has been the analyses. So
Yeah.
quite often people say to me, "Oh, Michelle, you should write a book." Actually, a book might be okay, might be nice, but actually the analyses are far more um, useful. A book is something you read and it's somebody's opinion, and you might have your own opinions about it, but the analysis actually teaches you
Right.
about yourself. It
Right.
teaches you about things that you might not have seen yourself. So the analyses are far more powerful than the books that I could have written. So I haven't written any more books. I've never written about the tsunami. And I haven't written any books on the stuff that I do. I've spent all my time putting the energy into the analyses. And I'm really pleased because it was only recently, in fact, at the Easter break, I was sitting in my office realizing that most people were on an Easter holiday, even though I wasn't, everyone else was. So what happened to me is I went into programming, into development mode, and I looked at the Essence profile and I just wrote, and I did something that I can do because I have ADHD, neurodivergence.
Mhm.
I hyper focused. I didn't
Yes.
eat, I didn't sleep, I didn't drink. I just wrote, and I just got into this flow and I created a whole new level, which I now call Oracle, the Oracle level of Essence. And it is so personal.
Mhm.
And I'm so excited. I've got the developers working on the graphs and the graphics at the moment. And
Wow.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to unleash that on the
Yeah.
world. It is a different level.
Yeah, I'm excited and I would like to invite you again to learn more about it. So Michelle, tell me about the work that you have done. Could you speak a little bit more about your condition with ADHD and how it has helped you to understand other people even better?
I think this kind of ties everything up quite nicely from that child that was misunderstood, that wanted to build
Yeah.
rapport. Because that's what my tools do. They elevate people, they empower people. They're written in the positive. We
Yeah.
don't look at someone's behavior profile as an example and say, Michelle, your accuracy is through the floor. You need to work on your accuracy. What
Yeah.
we do is we say, Michelle, your accuracy is on the floor. That means that your self confidence is through the roof, and we shine the light on where you belong. We get
Yeah.
someone else to double check your typos,
Yeah.
because
Correct.
it's going to take too much energy for you to put into that to do
Yeah.
something that is just not natural to you. So it's about leaning in to where we shine, and that's the beauty about collaboration. If we lean into people's strengths, that's when we unleash that magnificence. So the work that I do, I go in to organizations and I help leaders to unlock the people potential, the people power within their organization by, first of all, maybe we do a workshop, maybe we do the analyses, but then I hand it over to those people, and we work on a personal development program. We work on understanding each other. We work on leaning into each other. And then what we see, it's quite magical. We see everything start to improve. We start to see the bottom line going up. We start to see people being happier in the workplace. We start to see the culture changing. We start to see the performance going through the roof. Everything happens as a result of
Yeah.
us just getting on better, you know?
Yeah. In fact, Michelle, like a couple of years ago, this was the first time where I had to spend some time understanding more about ADHD. Somebody was giving a presentation about it, and the way they explained, finally, it made sense to me, saying that, you know, all of us have, symptoms, and each of us are on a different level on that spectrum. Maybe for some people, they're literally very high than normal levels, and maybe some people are like having a kind of like ADHD, but we don't know, right? And it was an eye opener for me. That night when I came back home, I started looking at my kids in a very different way, looking at my spouse in a very different way, and then even at myself in a very different way. I mean, like, okay, I never knew that. I'm not a psychology student. I'm not an arts student, right? I'm an engineering student. So we never really get exposed to that. And I was like, wow, I mean, this is crucial for leaders to understand their team members better, to understand how to run their organizations, or maybe even to understand customers also. What would your message be to people like me to get started, and where should they go, and what should they know to lead the companies in a better way? Because this is like wide open subject, right? I mean, there is no real way to understand humans.
Thank you for asking that question. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. So let me let me explain. That's a young adult who got an ungraded in maths and an A in their English language. That is because they had dyscalculia. Dyscalculia is a coexisting condition of ADHD. I was not diagnosed until 4 years ago, and it was because of my own behavior profile that was going, Aruga, Aruga. And I thought, do you know what? There are so many young adults at the moment that I deal with, because I deal with a lot of schools and school leaders, and help them on the right path, and there are so many of them that are saying, oh, I'm disabled because I've got this or I've got that. And the more people you talk about from from the academic side of things, they kind of pathologize what's wrong with the brain, what's wrong with, what are the faults, what are the disabilities, and the negative language is too much for me to bear.
Correct.
I spend my time in the positive. So rather than saying, oh, Michelle got an ungraded in maths, I'm like, Michelle had her first poem published nationwide when she was 11. There's talent here. Lean into the talent, not the deficit.
Yes.
So one of the tools that I've created that is not on the platform yet is actually, it's called Illuminator, and it illuminates potential neurodivergence in the workplace. What I'm asking leaders to do is to realize that any person in history that moved society forward for the betterment of humanity was probably off the scale neurodivergent. Okay. If you want to take Einstein, Albert Einstein, and tell him that he's a bit erratic and you want him to go on this particular program, we may never have discovered relativity. So
Right.
why are we clipping wings? Why
Mm.
are we just not letting people soar where they shine and
Yeah.
getting other people to back them up? That's what we need to be doing. So what I talk about is I talk about the commercial advantage of neurodivergence. If you want to be commercial about it, let's talk about the commercial advantage. I'm asking leaders to hire for neurodivergence talent. Look at what these people can bring. You look at MI5, you look at FBI, you look at, all of these organizations, they already hire for neurodivergence. So why are organizations not doing that?
That is so powerful. I mean, this opens up a new way of looking at profiling and filling the positions that match up and that can bring in the super talent and superpower to fit in those right roles instead of just looking at school or college results.
You and I know, every employer knows that if you want a brilliant salesperson who's fantastic at going out and closing the sale and building rapport and all the rest of it, they are going to be dreadful at their paperwork and they're never going to get it in on time. And we actually make adjustments for them. And then you've got the programmers that sit in their back cave and you walk in the room and, it's probably a bit smelly and all the blinds are closed and they're all sitting there with headphones on, not speaking to each other. You don't force them to go out and spend the lunchtime with everyone else mixing. You let them do what they do. So we're already making the adjustments when we see it clearly. So why are we not making adjustments for the people in the middle, for the people that we haven't looked at yet? What talent is it that you bring? Let people shine. And then, as I said, find someone else to help them do the paperwork. Let them go out themselves. Don't try and change them.
Yeah, and not only for leaders to understand more about themselves, like what are they good at and where can they leverage the talent of others, right? That is the bottom line that I'm taking from this discussion, Michelle. And this opens up a whole another level of thinking for me and hopefully to the audience as well. So thank you so much for sharing your insights and experience into this area. Uh, wow, Michelle, it's so powerful.
My pleasure. I think that the most important thing for leaders is to make sure that you are empowering people younger than you to be better than you. That's the power of leadership.
Yes.
And by the way, I've just launched the first ever neurodiversity community in the whole of the Global Speaking Federation. And it's full of remarkable people. And I'm so excited for
Right,
this.
right. So I know it's a good trajectory to the next topic, Michelle, before we close. Please share your experience being part of the GSF, Global Speaking Federation, and also being the past president of PS UK and Ireland, right? So, how was your experience and how did you even get into that leadership position and what were your takeaways from that whole experience?
I think a lot of neurodivergent people show up differently. We're either in it 100% or not at all. And if we're not interested in something, then we don't engage. And if we are, we're in it unbelievably. So I joined the PSA in 2015, 2016. And I became a fellow after just 1 year. And you have to be in the PSA for at least a year
Yeah,
before
yeah,
you become fellow. So I became a fellow and a regional president after 12 months. So I was in it. I already knew from the first national conference I went to, I went, oh my gosh, this is my tribe. I had no idea that this is my tribe. And it
yeah,
was seeing people from the Global Speaking Federation from all over the world coming to our stage and sharing everything they had for no fee. They're not getting paid
right.
for it. They're just sharing it open heartedly. And I was absolutely bowled over. And when I realized the power of what I call the mothership, the Global Speaking Federation, it's
Yeah,
beautiful. It connects people from all over the world. And I'm so grateful to be part of that.
yeah.
The Professional Speaking Association UK and Ireland is 25 years old. I joined the board 7, 8 years ago, I think. So I joined the board as membership director. I loved being membership director. Um, and I loved being able to welcome people in and show them the big picture. You're not just joining a region, you're not just joining PSA in the UK, you're joining 14 other PSAs and 20 other associations across the world because we are part of the Global Speaking Federation. That connection is so important. Um, but I actually had to step up as national president early because we had the biggest adversity that we'd ever had in 25 years. When we saw £140,000 go missing from our reserves, we did a full investigation to try and find out what had happened. There was nothing criminal that happened, thank goodness, but there was um, a lot of mistakes that were made. The entire board had to stand down and we had to be revoted into our positions. And it was quite bizarre, but 20 years, exactly 20 years after these lessons had been bestowed upon me, they were the very same lessons that I needed in order to try and bring our association back together again. Because it did shatter. It shattered the confidence in the whole of our membership. So we had to use those lessons of collaboration and coming together to bring our association back together. And I
Yeah.
really did feel that sometimes this tapestry of life is laid out before us.
Yeah.
Like, I can't, the serendipity is just too much to comprehend.
Yeah. Michelle, talking to you, it's like a life changing experience because you have so many life lessons to share. I know one episode is not enough. So I'm going to invite you again some other time. Before we close, Michelle, for today's, I would like to hear from you. If you could share two top lessons that any youngster can take, especially, I mean, I was hearing just a few days ago, somebody committed suicide at the age of 16. And it kind of like disturbed me to the core because, like, how did you even decide that life is not going to be beautiful for you, right? I mean, is there anything that we can do for people in that age group or even later, like before they take a hard decision like that? Is there something that we as leaders or speakers uh, can really inspire the world? What is your message for people like
You've
that?
asked me for two things, so
Yes.
I'm quite literal. I'm going to give you two things. The first is that life is like surfing, and sometimes you're surfing the crest of a wave, and it's fantastic, and and you feel magical, and everything's alive, and it's brilliant. But you will fall off that wave. It's inevitable. You cannot stay on that wave forever. You will fall off. Our job is not to stay on the board. Our job is to catch the next wave. So even if you go through pockets of life when you're thinking, I feel lost, I can't find my board, I don't know where my direction is, just wait for the next wave. The next wave, get on it, start to ride it and see where you can go with it. So that is the most important lesson I think I can give is, this is not the be all or end all. Just wait for the next wave and see what it brings. The second lesson that I want to share is that there is no wrong path. Now, this is something that I've been doing for many years. I was made aware of it by David Heiner, very, very dear friend of mine. And it's for when young adults go through their exam results.
Yeah.
And you literally sit there in front of a camera and you write all the things that you've done and say, there is no wrong path. Do not think that whatever you choose now has any bearing on where you're going to be in the future,
Yeah.
because there are so many things in our life that change our trajectory. There is no one path. So I failed my O levels. So what? I'm an international speaker. I'm an author. I've done so much. I've succeeded in so many different places. So what? There is no wrong path.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful, Michelle. I could thank you. I could salute you. What a wonderful, powerful story. And you're just simply creating a legacy of your own for others to follow, to get inspired. And you're not stopping there. Like, whenever you have time, I know that you go into your deep, focused mode and then create new products. The other day, I was looking at your message in the group. I was like, wow, I need to talk to her about it. Wow, Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your time and your life's lessons to the audience. And I hope um, you create more magic in this world. And universe is blessing you every single day.
Thank you. And thank you for creating such a wonderful platform for me to be able to reach people. The one thing I would like to give to you and to your audience is if anyone, I will send you through a cheat sheet of the core driving forces. And if anyone wants to have a look at that, just as a start to find out what their core driving forces might be. It will also show you what your motivators can be and what your stresses can be if that's your driving force. So I
Yes.
will send that to you as soon as we're finished.
Sure. Thank you so much, Michelle. Really appreciate your time and your support to the global audience. Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. Have a wonderful day and I'll keep in touch. Wish you all the very best. And I hope you go through your healing soon and you get back to your normal health. And thank you so much. And I know you did this interview while going through some pain with the recent accident you had. I wish you a speedy recovery, Michelle.
Thank
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you.